Hi, welcome back. If you watch the first two sections, at first I did my intro and blah 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 about me getting into racing with my dad way back in 1960. Can you imagine? I'm 72. In 1960, I was 12. So anyway, we did that in the first section. If you want to go back and look at it, and then the next section, last section, I talked about pace, which is so critical. It is half or more about when you win or lose, pace makes the race. If you win, it's because pace set up for you. If you lose, it's because pace failed you, and you didn't see it. You didn't analyze it correctly. So, but that's then. That's the first two sections. We're done with that. This last section, I thought, what can I do? I mean, I could keep going with section after section after section. I really gave this a lot of thought because, I mean, it's just my computer, and I could put on 10 sections of handicapping because I've done this for 60 years. But I thought, it's how can I do that? Because it took me, well, for example, it took me probably 5 years to get comfortable handicapping. But and I wanted to mention, my dad taught me no matter what it is, whether it's handicapping, golf, playing chess, work, whatever you do for a living. I'm a retired television news reporter. Oh, and as a television news reporter, every place I worked, I did stories involving horse racing. When I was in Tulsa, I went over to Oaklawn Park for Chris Lincoln and did 8 sports spotlights at Oaklawn Park, and I love that track. If you ever get a chance, go to Oaklawn Park in Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's fabulous. I had so much. I spent 2 days there, and then I went the next year for the Arkansas Derby, and we got the Arkansas Derby on the air in Tulsa, first time ever. And Chris Lincoln was our sports director when I was a reporter there back then. And then Chris Lincoln later on, he did that for a while for ESPN. He was doing that weekly horse replay show. You might recall that. But anyway, um, wherever I worked, whether it was Seattle at Long Acres, in Oaklawn Park, or Fairmont Park when I was in St. Louis, when I was in Cedar Rapids, Quad City Downs, I did stories at the harness track there and drove in a celebrity harness race. I tried to do stories at the racetrack because there's so many wonderful stories with jockeys and grooms, and especially grooms. Grooms are kind of the unsung hero because I've always felt that the groom is like a nurse, because the doctor sees the patient like in the morning rounds for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. The nurse sees the patient all day long. And if a good groom is worth his or her price in weight in gold, because think about it. If a groom is good, the groom sees little nuanced changes in the horse. Did the horse eat up the tub? Is he walking slightly off? Is he droopy? Is he sleeping too much? Is he not sleeping? Are there changes in his attitude? And you tell the trainer that, and we might be able to get the horse to the vet and make some changes. And the groom every day is checking the joints, feeling the joints for heat to see if there's any problem. But I've always and I did quite a few stories with grooms because they're so critically important. And and the trainers are, of course, too. But I've always felt that the grooms they don't get as much credit as they should, like nurses don't. But anyway, the handicapping part. I mean, it took me quite a while to really kind of figure out this. And as my dad told me, you'll never really know it all. And he says, I don't want you to ever think you know it all, no matter what it is, whether it's what you do for a living, whether it's handicapping the races, whether it's bowling, whether it's golf, whether it's playing chess, whatever it is. He said, always tell yourself, I'm going to keep learning. Because when you think you know it all, that's when you get complacent. That's when you get, I got this. And when you say, I got this, think about in your life when you've done that. Because I did that when I was younger. When you say, I've got this, that's when you fail. I had an example of that. I played a ping pong tournament. I was a pretty good ping pong player in college and in the Navy. And I was in a tournament and I skunked a guy. I went 7-0 and I beat him in the first game. And I let down. I said, oh, I got this guy. And he won the next 2 games, and he went on in the tournament. I was gone. So, see? And so if I'd stayed focused, I might have beat him, but I didn't. I thought I had it. So anyway, so I never, even after 60 years, every year I learn new things about handicapping. So that's why in this last section I thought I could do 10 more sections on specifically teaching you to handicap. But I think the best thing is I'm going to tell you a few things, but I'm going to tell you how to get yourself started. There's a really good book, and I think you can find it if you go online. You probably can find a copy, because I found another copy about 10 or 15 years ago. It's Tom Ainsley's Complete Guide to Thoroughbred Horse Racing. And my dad got me that book when I was in high school, and it was great. I had that for decades, and I made the mistake, which we've all done. I made the mistake of I lent it to somebody, and I never saw it again. That was gone. Anyway, but then I got another one, I could say 10 or 15 years ago, and then I misplaced that one somewhere. I'm not sure where it went. But Tom Ainsley's Complete Guide to Thoroughbred Horse Racing. But go online and see what you can find. Andy Beyer has some good books out, and but different people. You'll just really have, and go to a bookstore, of course, and see what you can find. But get a good book on basic handicapping, and also when you go buy a racing form, and you're going to want to get a racing form, and you may have to buy a few to find one. That's quite often they have an explanation page on how to read the racing form, and it'll show in detail about what everything means, because in the racing form every line is a race. The most recent line is the last race. The line before it is the race before, etc., etc., etc. But you need an explanation page to know what each thing means. It starts with the date of the last race and ends with a comment about the race, about what happened during the race, good, bad, or indifferent. So, but handicapping wise, it's a process of you learning. I talked about pace in the first one, and that's an important part. But there's also class of races. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but it's important to at least have a taste of this. The claiming race is the bottom. The claiming horses, and it's most of the races in horse racing are claiming races. And to describe this sometimes gets complicated, but I'm going to simplify it. The claiming races keeps horses where they belong, so that you don't have horses, much better, beating everybody up constantly, so it's no fun. And all the horses are favorites, and they're winning by 12 lengths. Claiming races are, if a horse is in a $5,000 claiming race, everybody that's a trainer or owner and at the track can claim that horse. In other words, buy it for $5,000 that day. In fact, sometimes 5 people or more, multiple people put a claim in, and they have a draw for it. They have a shake, and then one person gets to take the horse home, and that horse goes to your stable then. And people would say, well, why would you put a horse in there that you lose your horse? Well, because you put the horse where the horse belongs class-wise, because the horse is a $5,000 claimer. He can't win against $10,000 claimers. He's tried, and the horse can't win. And when you have a horse running against $10,000 claimers, and he loses 4 or 5 in a row, you break their heart, and horses give up. They literally give up. And plus, you're wasting money. So you might as well put them in a claiming race, or put them in a race where they can win. And even if you lose them in a claiming race, you get the money for the claim, and you get the purse if the horse wins. You see? That's claiming. Then Maiden races are they're claiming races for maiden too. Maiden races are horses that have never won a race, and that's a whole other ball game. I'm never been a big fan of betting those, and I basically don't bet maiden races, so I don't really want to talk about that because they're to me they're lotteries, so I don't really spend any time with maiden races. That's why I bet the later races in the day. I bet the last 4 or 5 races in the day at each whatever track I'm playing, because there's no maiden races. There might be a maiden race, the last race possibly, could be a maiden special turf race distance or something. But I bet the last 4 or 5 races at whatever track to avoid maiden races anyhow. And then the next up on the level is allowance races. And then anybody can be in there if you qualify to be in that kind of race. And you can't be claimed. And the purses are better, of course. And then stake races, the purses are even bigger. Wow. And then a lot of stake races you have to pay to get in. And then there's different grade 3, grade 2, and grade 1 are the highest. So, but when you're handicapping, you're looking at class. Pace makes the race first, then you're looking at class. And you're looking at when you're comparing and contrasting these horses, when you're looking at all of them, and you're also looking back, and you're seeing, like, maybe if they show 10 races in the racing form, you might see something 7 or 8 races back that tells you there's a pattern there that you're seeing similar to what's happening now, that this horse might be sitting on a win. Oh, so I mean, sometimes I've been able to find winners doing that. But there's 1,000 ways to find a winner, and there's, as my dad said, 1,000 ways to find a loser. but get a book. Well, I probably read 20 plus books on handicapping, but get a book. Tom Ainsley's Complete Guide to Thoroughbred Horse Racing is, as I say, is if you can find that, it's a great way to go. And find out. Buy a racing forum that has an explanation page, and just start. Then my last suggestion before I leave you, my last suggestion is when you buy a racing forum after you're getting comfortable learning how to handicap, because you have your book and you're learning. Go ahead and get a forum at your local track or wherever, and go ahead and pick some horses. And just see how you do. Don't bet any money. Don't go to the track. Just get the form, pick some horses, and check the results, either online or in the paper the next day, and see. And that's a good way to go, just to see how you do. And then once you start, getting some winners, and when you start feeling comfortable, then go to the track with the form and bring some money. The last thing I want to talk about, the very last thing, is, and my dad was really insistent on this, nowadays with the ATM, never bring your ATM card to the track. That sounds a little obvious, but some people do, but don't. Don't bring your ATM card, and bring your daily allotment. Whatever that is, whatever you're comfortable losing, bring that amount of money. Normally I bring $60 or $80, and that's it. And then if I say I win $100, I take 20% that I can spend that day, and $80 goes to the left side of my billfold. And I'm pretty good. I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty good at hanging on to that, because I want to go home with that $80, and then the 20, I can use that day. If it's under 100, then I don't really worry about it. I just kind of, that's all right. But have a daily allotment, and that's really, really important. And again, no ATM card. And so when you've spent your 80 or whatever your daily allotment is, then you go home, because you're done for the day. And because you want it to be comfortable. You don't want to spend money that you shouldn't. Obviously, you pay your bills first, and this is discretionary. This is fun money, and there's nothing better than to take 60 or 80 bucks to the track and you walk out with 1,000. What's better than that? You know, nothing. With your clothes on. But anyway, good talking to you, and good racing. See you later.